The Crack's Grand Admiral Vexthor stood at the helm of the dreadnought Eternal Hunter, his scaled fingers drumming against the crystalline command console. The massive viewscreen before him displayed Earth, a seemingly insignificant blue marble spinning quietly in space. His species had conquered hundreds of worlds, turning their inhabitants into sport for the galaxy's most feared warrior race. But something about this planet made his dorsal spines twitch. "Preliminary assessment complete, Grand Admiral," announced Science Officer Zix, her metallic scales glinting under the bridge's ambient lighting. The dominant species appears to be in their early space age. Primitive projectile weapons, basic orbital capabilities, no unified planetary government. They call themselves humans. Vexthor's lip curled, revealing rows of serrated teeth. "Show me." The view screen shifted to display various human activities, their cities, their conflicts, their daily lives. The Crack's bridge crew chittered in amusement at the sight of beings that appeared so soft, so vulnerable. No natural armor, no claws, not even basic regenerative abilities. They spent most of their time in artificial habitats, Six continued, her voice carrying a note of dismissal. Their strongest warriors would barely match our juveniles in combat. They rely heavily on tools and machines, having no natural defenses of their own. Perfect. Vexthor's voice rumbled with satisfaction. "The hunting grounds we've been searching for. Our warriors grow soft hunting engineered prey on our game worlds. These humans will provide excellent sport, and their planet." He gestured at the blue world below. "A fine addition to our hunting preserves." Captain Krell, his second in command, stepped forward. "Shall I prepare the invasion fleet, Admiral?" "No." Vexthor's eyes narrowed. "We do this properly. Send in a single hunter-killer team. Let them assess the prey's capabilities firsthand. Something about these humans. I want to know everything before we commit our forces." The hunter-killer team deployed at midnight, local Earth time. 5 of the Crax's finest warriors, equipped with the latest in stealth and weapons technology. Their dropship, cloaked from all known detection methods, landed silently in a remote forest region of the landmass humans called North America. Team leader Vrax activated his armor's adaptive camouflage, becoming nearly invisible in the moonlight. "Remember," he subvocalized to his team, "this is a reconnaissance mission. We take a few specimens, test their capabilities, and report back. No unnecessary engagement." The team spread out in standard hunting formation, their sensors scanning for human life signs. The forest was quiet, save for the local wildlife. Their first target was a small settlement their scans had detected 15 kilometers to the north. 3 hours into their advance, Specialist Kex froze. "Leader, something's wrong. The wildlife patterns are irregular." Before Vrax could respond, a series of nearly silent pops echoed through the forest. Sophisticated mesh nets, practically invisible until activation, sprang from hidden launchers. 2 of his warriors were ensnared instantly, their plasma cutters struggling against the seemingly primitive restraints. "Impossible," Vrax hissed. "These are supposedly primitive." His words cut off as targeted EMP bursts disabled their armor's primary systems. In the sudden darkness, red targeting lasers appeared from multiple directions, dancing across their bodies. A human voice, calm and professional, spoke from the darkness. "Welcome to Earth, gentlemen. I'm Colonel Sarah Chen, Earth Defense Force. We've been expecting you." Vrax's blood ran cold as figures emerged from the forest, their combat suits making them nearly as invisible as his own disabled stealth system. They moved with practiced precision, their weapons trained with unwavering accuracy. "How?" he managed to ask. Colonel Chen's laugh carried no humor. "Did you really think you were the first aliens to discover Earth? We've been preparing for this moment for decades. Your stealth tech is good, but it's nothing we haven't seen before. Now we have some questions about your fleet's intentions, and you're going to help us understand exactly what we're dealing with." As his team was efficiently disarmed and secured, Vrax realized their fatal error. They had assessed humans by their physical capabilities alone, overlooking their true strength, their ability to adapt, prepare, and turn apparent weakness into devastating advantage. Back on the Eternal Hunter, Vexthor waited for a report that would never come, unaware that his perfect hunting ground had just become a trap, and that humans were far more than the prey he had imagined them to be. In the coming hours, as Earth's defensive grid activated and hidden military installations emerged from their camouflage, the galaxy's greatest hunters would learn a harsh lesson about judging a species by their apparent limitations. The humans weren't just ready for them. They had been waiting. Grand Admiral Vexthor's rage echoed through the command deck as the last transmission from his hunter-killer team dissolved into static. Behind him, his bridge crew worked in tense silence, their scales tight against their bodies in anxiety. "Impossible," he snarled, smashing his fist against his command chair. "An entire elite team, captured by primitives. Launch the invasion fleet. Now." Captain Krall stepped forward cautiously. "Admiral, perhaps we should recess." "Are you questioning my orders, Captain?" Vexthor's eyes blazed with cold fury. "These humans have committed an act of war against the Crack's dominion. They will learn the price of such defiance." Deep within the mountain complex of Earth's Global Defense Command, Colonel Chen watched the alien fleet's deployment through a holographic display. Around her, the command center hummed with controlled activity as military personnel from dozens of nations coordinated their response. "They took the bait," she announced to General Williams, who stood beside her. "Tactical analysis." The general gestured at the display. 500 ships, mostly medium-class destroyers. They're forming into standard conquest patterns, exactly as our captured friends predicted they would. Chen smiled grimly. "Predictable. Has Project Aurora been activated?" "All satellites are in position, Colonel, just waiting for them to cross the outer defense line." In space, the Crack's fleet approached Earth with absolute confidence. Their ships, sleek predatory shapes of dark metal and crystalline energy weapons, moved in perfect formation. On the flagship's bridge, Vexthor watched with satisfaction as they entered the planet's outer orbit. "No sign of orbital defenses," reported his tactical officer. "These humans truly are primitive." "Begin the first wave," Vexthor commanded. "Show them the price off." His words cut off as hundreds of previously invisible satellites suddenly activated around his fleet. Before his crew could react, powerful electromagnetic pulses rippled through space, targeting the Crack's ship's primary systems. "What's happening?" he roared as his ship's lights flickered. "Report." "Multiple systems failing," his engineering officer shouted. "They're using our own sensor frequencies against us. Somehow they knew exactly how to target our shielding." In the chaos that followed, the humans revealed their true defensive capabilities. Sleek fighters emerged from hidden bases on Earth's moon, their weapons specifically calibrated to penetrate Crack's armor. Space stations that had appeared to be civilian outposts transformed into military platforms, launching swarms of autonomous combat drones. "This is impossible," Vexthor whispered as he watched a third of his fleet disabled in the opening minutes of battle. "How could they have prepared so specifically for us?" The answer came in the form of a transmission, displaying Colonel Chen's face on his bridge's main screen. "Admiral Vexthor, I believe it's time we had a conversation about assumptions and preparation." "How do you know my name?" he demanded. "Your advance team was very helpful," she replied calmly. "Once we explained that cooperation would be preferable to becoming research subjects, they provided quite detailed information about your capabilities and tactical doctrine." Around the flagship, more Crack ships fell dark as the human counterattack continued. Their carefully planned invasion had transformed into a desperate fight for survival against an enemy that had apparently spent years preparing specifically for this moment. "You see, Admiral," Chen continued, "we humans have a long history of being underestimated. It's taught us to be very, very thorough in our preparations. Your hunters provided us with exactly the information we needed to turn your own technology against you." Vexthor watched in growing horror as human ships began systematic capture operations on his disabled vessels. Their tactics were precise, efficient, and clearly designed specifically to counter Crack's technology and strategy. Your species prides itself on being the galaxy's greatest hunters, Chen said, her voice carrying a note of steel. But you forgot the most important rule of hunting. Never assume you're the only predator in the forest. As his remaining ships attempted to retreat, breaking formation in their haste to escape, Vexthor realized that his species' greatest hunting expedition had become something else entirely, a lesson in humility, delivered by prey that had proven to be anything but helpless. In the aftermath of the battle, as human ships secured their prisoners and began recovery operations, Chen sent a final message to the retreating Crack vessels. Consider this a formal notice. Earth is not your hunting ground. We are not your prey. Remember this day, and choose wisely if you ever consider returning. In the aftermath of the failed invasion, the Crack's High Council convened in their sacred hunting halls on their homeworld. The chamber, traditionally decorated with trophies from countless successful hunts, now felt oppressive rather than triumphant. Grand Admiral Vexthor stood before them, his scales dulled with shame. "This is unprecedented," Elder Kavax declared, her ancient voice echoing through the hall. "Never in our history has a prey species not only resisted but defeated a full invasion fleet. They are not what we thought," Vexthor admitted, his voice hoarse. "They knew our weaknesses, our tactics. They had prepared." Silence. Supreme Hunter Malthor rose from his bone throne, his massive frame towering over the assembly. "I will not accept that some primitive species has humbled the Crack's dominion. Prepare the Eternal Fleet. We will show these humans the true might of our race." In Earth's orbital command center, Colonel Chen watched the long-range sensors with growing concern. Behind her, banks of computers processed data from the captured Crack's vessels, adding to humanity's already substantial knowledge of their adversaries. "They're gathering a larger fleet," General Williams noted, studying the tactical displays. "Looks like we wounded their pride." Chen nodded. "Pride is predictable. That's why we held back our main defensive capabilities. Sometimes the best trap is the one that appears to have already been sprung." Across Earth, hidden preparations continued. Underground factories produced weapons specifically designed to counter Crack's technology. Orbital platforms that had remained dormant during the first battle began powering up their primary systems. But the humans' greatest advantage remained psychological. The Cracks still didn't understand what they were truly facing. The Eternal Fleet emerged from hyperspace 3 days later. 5,000 ships, the largest armada the Cracks had ever assembled. Supreme Hunter Malthor stood on his flagship's bridge, watching Earth grow larger on the view screen. "See how they tremble before our might," he declared to his officers. "Their previous victory was mere luck. Now they will learn." "Sir," his sensor officer interrupted, "we're detecting strange energy readings from Earth's moon." Before Malthor could respond, the lunar surface began to change. Vast sections of what had appeared to be natural terrain split apart, revealing massive weapon emplacements and launch bays. The humans had literally hollowed out their moon, turning it into a fortress that dwarfed anything in known space. "Impossible," Malthor whispered. "The resources required. The engineering." Colonel Chen's voice came through their communication system. "Supreme Hunter Malthor, humanity has been preparing for extraterrestrial contact for over a century. Every alien invasion movie, every science fiction story, they weren't just entertainment. They were preparation. We've been imagining ways to defend our world since before we could reach space ourselves." The moon's surface bristled with weapons, each designed specifically to counter Crack's technology. But more shocking were the ships emerging from the hidden bays, vessels that combined captured Crack's technology with human innovation in ways the aliens had never imagined. "Your first invasion force gave us valuable insights," Chen continued. "But we already had countermeasures in place for dozens of possible alien technologies. We've been building this fortress since the 1960s, Supreme Hunter. Every space program, every satellite launch, they all served double purposes. The battle that followed was unlike anything the Cracks had experienced in their thousands of years of conquest. Human ships demonstrated impossible maneuvers, using tactics that seemed to defy physics. The lunar fortress unleashed weapons that turned the aliens' own technology against them, creating cascading failures in their most advanced systems. In his command center, Malthor watched in horror as his mighty fleet was systematically dismantled by what he had dismissed as primitive prey. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were hunting his ships, using strategies that showed an intimate understanding of Crack's psychology and tactics. How? He demanded over the command channel. How could you have prepared so thoroughly? Chen's response was calm, almost sympathetic. Because we know what it means to be prey, Supreme Hunter. Our entire history is a story of adaptation and survival. We fought ourselves, our environment, and our limitations. Every challenge has made us stronger, more innovative, more determined. As the Eternal Fleet crumbled under Earth's defense systems, Malthor finally understood their fatal error. They had judged humanity by their apparent technological level, by their physical capabilities, by their divided planetary government. They should have judged them by their potential, their adaptability, and their endless capacity to prepare for any threat. The Cracks had thought themselves the galaxy's greatest hunters. Now they were learning that sometimes the most dangerous prey is the one that has spent its entire existence learning how to survive. The halls of the Cracks High Council, once echoing with tales of glorious hunts, now rang with heated debate. Supreme Hunter Malthor's defeat had shaken the very foundations of their society. Elder Kavak stood at the center of the chamber, her ancient scales dulled with concern. "We have lost 2 fleets to these humans," she announced, her voice heavy with implication. "Our greatest warriors, our most advanced technology, rendered useless by prey that we dismissed as primitive. In Earth orbit, humanity's combined fleet had begun a bold new phase of operations. No longer content with defensive actions, they had started probing Crack's territory, mapping their supply lines, and defensive positions. Colonel Chen stood aboard the newly commissioned ESS Aegis, Earth's first hybrid warship combining human ingenuity with adapted Crack's technology. "Status report on Operation Checkmate," she asked, watching as holographic displays showed human ships moving through former Crack's space. "Phase 1 complete, Colonel," her tactical officer reported. "Our stealth ships have mapped their primary military installations. The Cracks are pulling forces from their other hunting grounds to fortify their core worlds." Chen nodded, a grim smile playing across her face. "They still think this is about defense. They don't understand that humans have learned to think like predators too." The Cracks' homeworld was in chaos. For the first time in their history, they faced an enemy that not only resisted their hunts, but actively countered their every move. Their military leaders struggled to adapt to human tactics that seemed to change with each engagement. "They're testing our defenses," Malthor growled, studying reports of human probe ships. "But why haven't they attacked? They have the advantage." His question was answered when human ships suddenly appeared within Crack's territory, not near military installations, but instead targeting their hunting preserves. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were systematically dismantling the Cracks' entire way of life. "This is Colonel Chen to all Cracks frequencies," the transmission cut through their confusion. "We've spent months studying your society. Your hunting preserves aren't just recreation. They're the foundation of your economy, your social structure, your very identity." The humans began liberating the preserved species the Cracks had collected across the galaxy. Each rescue operation was precisely planned, using weapons and tactics that evolved faster than the Cracks could adapt. It wasn't just military superiority. It was psychological warfare of the highest order. "You see," Chen continued, her voice carrying across every Cracks channel, "while you were busy underestimating us, we were learning everything about you. Your society is built on the concept of the hunt, but you've forgotten what it truly means to be hunters. Real predators adapt. They learn. They evolve." The Cracks watched in helpless rage as their carefully maintained hunting grounds were systematically emptied. Species they had considered property were being freed, their prisons transformed into sanctuaries protected by human ships that seemed to appear and disappear at will. In a desperate attempt to counter the humans' actions, the Cracks launched a series of frantic attacks. But each assault fell into carefully prepared traps, as if the humans could predict their every move. Their remaining ships were caught in complex ambushes that demonstrated an almost prescient understanding of Cracks' tactical doctrine. How? Malthor demanded during one particularly devastating battle. How do you keep anticipating our strategies? Chen's response was almost pitying. Because you still think like hunters facing prey. We think like survivors who became predators out of necessity. Every species you've hunted, we've learned from their experiences. Every tactic you've developed, we've found its counter. You taught the galaxy to fear the hunt, Supreme Hunter. We taught ourselves to master it. As their empire crumbled around them, the Cracks finally began to understand. The humans hadn't just defeated their military. They had systematically dismantled their entire civilization's foundation. Each freed hunting preserve, each liberated species, each destroyed military installation was another crack in the edifice of Cracks' superiority. In the command center of the ESS Aegis, Chen watched as another group of freed beings was evacuated to safety. "Send word to Earth Command," she ordered. "Phase 3 is complete. It's time to offer the Cracks a choice about their species' future." The message that would follow would shake the Cracks' civilization to its core. An offer that would force them to confront everything they thought they knew about strength, about hunting, and about what it truly meant to be apex predators in a galaxy that had just revealed its true master hunters. The Great Hall of Earth's unified command was unlike anything the Cracks delegation had ever seen. Instead of trophies of conquest, the walls displayed images of space exploration, scientific achievements, and peaceful first contact with other species. Elder Kavax, Supreme Hunter Malthor, and what remained of the Cracks' leadership stood before the assembled human representatives. Colonel Chen, now Admiral Chen, stepped forward. The promotion had come after her successful execution of humanity's counteroffensive. "Welcome to Earth," she said, her voice carrying no trace of triumph or mockery. "We trust your journey here was enlightening." Indeed it had been. The Cracks' ships had been escorted through human space, witnessing firsthand what humanity had accomplished. They saw terraformed Mars colonies, thriving lunar cities, and orbital habitats that made their hunting preserves look primitive by comparison. "You've destroyed everything we built," Malthor said, his voice heavy with defeat. "Our preserves, our hunting grounds." "No," Chen interrupted. "We've given you an opportunity to build something better. Your species has spent millennia proving your superiority through hunting. We're offering you a chance to prove it through growth." The screens around them lit up with images of the species humanity had freed from Cracks' preserves. But instead of showing their liberation, the images displayed something unexpected. Former prey species working alongside human scientists, engineers, and diplomats. "Every species you hunted had something to teach," Chen explained. "Technologies, perspectives, adaptations that you overlooked because you saw them only as prey. We've learned more in months of cooperation than you did in centuries of hunting." Elder Kavax stepped forward, her ancient eyes showing the first glimmer of understanding. "You're not here to destroy us." Finally, Chen smiled, "You begin to understand. Humanity doesn't want to be the new Cracks. We don't want to rule through fear or dominance. We want to build something new." The proposal that followed stunned the Cracks delegation. Instead of demands for surrender or reparations, the humans offered partnership. They would help rebuild Cracks society, not as hunters, but as guardians. Their martial prowess could be redirected toward protecting species rather than hunting them. "Your people have incredible capabilities," Chen continued. "Your technology, your discipline, your determination. Imagine these qualities used to explore rather than exploit, to protect rather than prey upon. And if we refuse?" Malthor challenged, though his voice lacked its former arrogance. Chen's expression remained neutral. Then you'll be contained, humanely, but firmly. We've demonstrated our ability to counter your every move, but we'd rather have you as allies than prisoners. The images on the screens changed again, showing concepts for joint human cracks space exploration vessels, collaborative research stations, and training facilities where cracks warriors could learn to be peacekeepers instead of hunters. Your species takes pride in being the galaxy's greatest hunters, Chen said. But the greatest predators in Earth's history weren't those that killed the most prey. They were those that adapted, that found new ways to survive and thrive. Evolution isn't about maintaining the status quo. It's about becoming better. As the Cracks delegation studied the proposals, something remarkable happened. For the first time in their history, they began to see strength in something other than the hunt. They saw how humanity had turned their defensive preparations into tools for expansion and growth. How their adaptability had led not just to survival, but to thriving. We offer you this choice, Chen concluded, not because we fear you, but because we see what you could become. The galaxy doesn't need more hunters. It needs protectors, explorers, builders. Will you join us? In the silence that followed, Elder Kovacs stepped forward, her voice, carrying the weight of centuries of Cracks tradition, trembled slightly as she spoke. We came to your world seeking prey. Instead, we found teachers. The Cracks accept your offer. The treaty that followed would be remembered not as a document of surrender, but as the beginning of a transformation. The species that had once terrorized the galaxy would become its guardians, working alongside humans to protect and nurture the very beings they once hunted. Years later, when asked about the decision, Elder Kovacs would say, "The humans taught us the greatest lesson of all. True strength lies not in dominating others, but in helping them grow. We thought we were the galaxy's greatest hunters, only to discover that the greatest prey of all had become something far more powerful, teachers of a better way." The stars above Earth shone down on a changed galaxy. Where once there had been hunting grounds, now there were sanctuaries. Where there had been prey and predator, now there were partners in exploration and growth. Humanity had done more than defend itself. It had transformed an enemy into an ally, turning an ancient culture of hunting into a force for protection and progress. And in doing so, they proved that the greatest victory isn't in defeating an enemy, but in showing them a better path forward.